going to be looking at my astrology chart today, because I'm going to show you how astrology, how powerful it is in healing and as a healing tool. And I'm going to run through some books that are really quite life-changing as well, that have really helped me in my life. And really it's about empowering ourselves, because often we can really get down in the dumps and think that, you know, that this is our lot. And we've got a lot of childhood conditioning to really deal with. And as we evolve, sorry, I'm looking at my phone, but as we begin to do the work and we evolve, we basically are, you know, being of service to our own soul. So let me see. Gosh, I'm being slow, but I'm nearly there. Okay, history. Okay, I can see I'm live. So what I'm going to do, if anybody comes on, you'll be able to... Jessica, hello, Jessica, you can see me. Brilliant. So what I'm doing is that I'm sharing some knowledge on my astrology chart. I'm going to bring it up and explain how my own trauma showed up in that chart. And so an astrologer looking at my own birth chart, which I will name, and somebody that I started using to look at my chart was a guy called Simon Vorster, who has a brilliant channel on YouTube. But I did, you know, I've done probably in excess of 30 sessions with him over the last year and a half. And through that, he also has a school called Raising Vibrations. And I then began to learn my own astrology chart and then go a step further by learning to read. So the beauty is that a lot of us have had quite a tough time in childhood, not the beauty of it, but the reality that many of us have been traumatized and through life. And as we get into our 30s, 40s, and, you know, for me, 50, a lot of us can see that we've got, you know, a lot of unhealed wounds that have not been dealt with. So I'm going to say that one of the main things that helped me was looking at my own chart and then looking at complex PTSD. So if you can see this book here, this is Pete Walker, which is Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. And this book shows you how to heal complex childhood trauma. And it takes about, from reading this book, Pete Walker says in this book, it takes about 2 years. And it does, because the reality of the getting rid of our inner critic, which is major in empowering us, you know, so we stop berating ourselves and we begin to reclaim our own power. A lot of the voices that we hear in our head are generally, you know, it's been our parents or our carers or our siblings or teachers that told us that we were not good enough. So we have to, as adults, we have to take our own healing on board. Therapy and modalities, like, for instance, I trained in faster EFT tapping. That modality only took me so far. Astrology can take you to another level. If you look at your chart, you're able to see what goes on and what that is about. But clearly, it's going to be different for everybody. But here, I'm going to go through a few books first. Before I show you my chart, I'm going to go through a few books that I've been currently reading. This is one called Trauma and the Soul. And this is by a Jungian therapist called Donald Cowshed, if you can see that there. And he is talking about how the personality is split in childhood and how the self-care system means our form of protection basically will mean that it's stunted in growth. You know, the personality is split, the soul is shattered in child abuse. So it means that we've got to reclaim our soul. Another book that I've got, which I haven't read yet, which is called Trauma and Recovery, which is another brilliant book that is highly recommended. And Pete Walker basically suggested that book also in his Complex PTSD book. So another book worth looking at. The books that I'm going to look at on astrology are a bit different. In understanding astrology, we will look at karmic complexes. So it could be a belief, not for all of us, that sometimes if we believe, you know, that part of our pain comes from past life issues. And if I'm think about myself. When I sleep at night, I tend to see images and visuals and eyes, eye to eye. I do feel that there is something bigger than us, and that we can access, through dream states, we can access deeper knowledge about ourselves, if that makes sense. I don't know if anybody's watching has any, is a regular person that dreams at night, because I dream every single night. And the first 20 minutes of sleep, I basically see eyes looking at me eye to eye. And I have come across other people who've told me that they experience this as well. So I know I'm not alone, or that I'm not, having a sort of mad experience. I have spoken to a few other people who've told me about that. So now with astrology, which I started learning in 2015, because I began to look at my own chart, and because I wanted to know myself and understand myself, and I wanted to heal deep childhood trauma and abandonment that I went through, that was, very difficult for years. What I did was, which was quite disempowering, but something that I went through. And a lot of people that have been through abuse tend to disassociate as adults. They can get involved in codependent relationships and make very bad choices, go towards addictions, which, it can be drinking, smoking, or such like. For me, I used to drink, and it turned into being a bottle and a half of wine a night. I actually didn't start drinking until my 30s, really. But when I did, I sort of went nuts. And I stopped drinking in 2012, and I'm currently 7 years without alcohol. And on top of that, another healing thing you can do for yourself is stop using processed sugar, because the emotions get thrown about with processed sugar. So we can really help ourselves, not only with knowledge, but also with nutrition. So what we've got is that I've got 51 days without any processed sugar, which is a miracle. What I have noticed is that my emotions have been much clearer to me. I've been able to see, where I feel my hurt more than anything that I experienced before. So it's almost like the sugar, like I'd have a little bit of cake each night, not a whole cake, but a small cake. That bit of cake was covering up some emotional content that needed to be resolved in me. So it's been a beautiful thing to be able to see how things like sugar, and drinking a bottle and a half of wine a night would have been like sugar, laden with sugar. So, we can help ourselves in many ways. In my astrology study, I'm going to bring up my chart actually and show you. And then I'm going to talk about a few books that I currently have, that if you want to get into astrology, you can get your own chart. I'm going to show you this now. Right. Hopefully you see my chart on the screen. This is my birth chart. And this chart is actually dated the 2nd of July. Okay, I hope you can see my chart there. What we have is that we have the planets. They're a snapshot of the heavens at birth. So I'm going to go for my pointer so you can see spotlight. Okay, so if you're watching, if anybody's there and they want to chat, I may not see your messages whilst I'm looking at this chart. So whilst I'm looking at the chart, I won't see any messages come up, but I just want to run through this. So what we've got is that we have a birth chart, and we can look at the date. We put the date in, and we put the time of birth. Without the time of birth, you're not going to know what your rising sign is. So I'm going to give you an example. My time of birth was 8:30 p.m. on the 21st of July, 1966 in London, UK. So this chart you can get from astro.com. You can get a free chart. If you go to www.astro.com, you'll be able to see your own chart and get a copy just like this. And if you get stuck with that and you need help, you can always private message me and I'll do one for you, but time dependent as well. But I wouldn't read it for you. I'd basically just be, giving you access to this, and I could email it to you or send it to you in private messenger on Facebook. And what we have is that I am here, a Scorpio rising. So this means for me that I do a lot of, a lot of loss, abandonment and betrayal I've had in my life. And also I tend to investigate things, and I can be very suspicious and I can be, on occasion, I can be manipulative. That would have come from past life stuff as well. So I'm a good person, but we've all got traits. We've all got our dispositions, but also being suspicious can be a good thing. Like if you're an investigator, being suspicious of other people can be a healthy thing, for instance, because it helps you to investigate things. So there are good qualities. There's no such thing as absolute good or absolute bad. So I'm going to run through my planets, and I'm going to do it in a way that is reading from you can see here the sun, the moon, Mercury. I'm going to read through this list, and then I'm going to point to the planets in my chart. Each house has a meaning. You've got the first house through to the 12th, and each house has a meaning. So once I've done that, I'm going to show you where the trauma shows in my chart as a child, and that an astrologer, somebody who can read an astrology chart, is able to pick up on these things. And then also how we go about healing that trauma, okay? So what we've got is that we've got the sun. So my sun, you can see there, is 0 degrees of Gemini, and my sun on my birth chart is here, if you can see where I'm pointing there. So my sun is there. My moon is at 17 degrees of Gemini, and my moon is in Gemini as well. Then I've got my Mercury. My Mercury is in Taurus. So if you're looking at your own chart, I'm just encouraging you by showing you this to, give, so that you can understand what you're looking at. My Mercury is in Taurus at 23 degrees. And then we've got Venus, and my Venus is 18 degrees of Aries, just there. That's my Venus. Then we've got Mars, and my Mars is also in Taurus at 24 degrees. And then we've got Jupiter, which is at 3 degrees of Cancer. So my Jupiter is here, there. And then we have Saturn, which is our karma teacher and stuff like that. So I could go deeper, but I'm just going to run through this briefly today. My Saturn is in Pisces, just here at 27 degrees. And then we've got Uranus, and my Uranus is it's on my MC. If you can see there, you've got the MC, and that's Uranus on my MC. And then I've got Neptune, which is in my 12th house of Scorpio. And then what else have I got? We've got the true node, which is the north node. So the north node is this life, this path, in this life. And the south node, which is here, is past life stuff. So the other thing we'd then do with an astrology chart, we'd scan it, and then in evolutionary astrology, what we would be doing is we'd be looking at Pluto, which is here, and then we would look at the nodes of the moon, which is the north node and the south node. And then but this is what I do. So we would then look at conjunctions. So a conjunction is the distance the planet is from one planet to another. So for instance, I've got Neptune conjunct my south node, so in Scorpio in the 12th house. So everything on a chart means something. So anybody reading a chart, it takes time to learn. It's like, deeper than reading music, one piece of music, because what we've got, the other thing that happens is that we have something called transits, and it's where the planets are right at this point in time, or where they were on the 2nd of July in this case, because this chart is dated the 2nd of July. And with this, we can then begin to see what's going on. In the middle of the chart, you have what we call aspects. And this means, or is saying, the way the planets speak to each other. So I see Jessica can see me. I can't see any more messages there at the moment. But what we've got is that we've got transits, and then we've got the aspects, and the aspects show you how the planets are speaking to each other. So let me give you an example. So anybody looking at my chart, and if they were looking to see, what my childhood was like, they can see here that Pluto, which is the underworld, to make it simple, it's what lays beneath the surface. And as Carl Gustav Jung would say, it's all that is unconscious in us, it's our unconsciousness. So Pluto squares my moon, and the moon is our security and our emotions and mother. Now, Pluto squaring the moon shows that I would have had a lot of hardship in my security and also around mother. And because it's in Gemini, that would also include communication. And it's in the 7th house, which is to do with, you know, one-to-one relationships and partnerships. So the other thing that would have been seen here is that this Chiron, which is the wounded healer, and Saturn, which is, you know, to do with father or the father figure and authority, it shows that I've been wounded also, and the 4th house is home, security, and family. So we can begin to see that for me, I would have had a lot of hardship in my childhood by this chart. Not the exact details, but we can see here, hopefully this is not too fast, I'm just going to keep going with it, but there's 2 people watching, that's enough. Okay, so we've got here the Neptune conjunct the South Node, and this South Node is past life, and Neptune is to do with the unconscious, you know, the totality of our, you know, hopes, wishes, and dreams. And it would have meant that somewhere there would have been some like shattering of my own hopes, wishes, and dreams that I've come into this life. And what more can I say? I mean, for anybody that follows me on Facebook, you probably know a bit of my personal story of abuse and how I've, you know, been working on transforming that as well. So we can dig as deep as we want on a chart. It took me about 2 years to really understand my chart fully. And then through learning my chart, as I went along, I'd Google a lot of the placements and stuff like that. And then I'd buy books. So I'm going to come out of that. Stop share. I'm not going to stay on for long, but I'm going to be clear on what I'm up to. So then what you can do is that if you print off your own chart, you can Google the aspects and stuff like that, but you can also then go and buy, you know, a couple of books. So this book, it's called Planets in Transit. So this means the transits that are going on currently. So for instance, I've got Mercury transiting through my 8th house, and that means I can go and see what that means to me at this time. So this book is by Robert Hand, and it's a beautiful book to have. You can see I've marked off some of my transits there. And the whole point of this is knowing self. And I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to show you if Carl Gustav Jung, this is a book called The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious. And this is a beautiful book, which I've got yet to work through it properly because I'm reading so many books at the moment. But this book is about the collective unconscious and the archetypes and the way we think. And, you know, there's knowledge that can really take us to another level to heal. Now, going back to the astrology, we've got this book by Robert Pellietier. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that French name properly, but this is planets in aspect. So if you can recall, you've got your transits and then you've got the planets in aspect. So I don't know if anybody else, has anybody got any questions out there? The 2 people that are watching, I don't know if Jessica is still there, but whoever is watching, if you haven't got your own birth chart and you would like to know more about that and you want to heal some of your early trauma, through wisdom, I'm not a medical doctor of any sort, but through wisdom and heaps of knowledge, I'm able to assist people. And that's what I'm sharing today. It's about 9 p.m. in London. I'm just about to go and get some food sorted out for myself, but hopefully that's useful. And if you want to get your own chart and you want to do it yourself, just go to www.astro.com and you need your date and your time and your place of birth. And if you need any help, remember, you can private message me. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you, Jessica. If you're still there, thanks for watching. If not, then I'll see you over on Facebook. Catch you later. Thanks for watching.